Hello, everyone. Thank you all for being here. So I wanted to today continue the conversation we started last week. There's enough fears, enough things going around to cause us to go into sheer panic and sheer survival. If you look at what's going on around the world right now with climate change alone, that's enough to scare you. If you look at what's going on in Europe right now with the war and a nuclear power plant that looks like it's about to go off and explode and have a nuclear disaster meltdown, that's also another potential disaster, because if that happened, the fallout will be all over Europe, all over Russia, Ukraine, and all over Europe. There is enough events, circumstances, including disease, including my recent experience. It's only 2 weeks old with COVID. There's enough things going around to cause you to go into sheer fear and panic. And the funny thing about it, as much as a boogeyman that COVID was, for me, the experience, as I said, I don't want to talk about it too much because because the symptoms I had were so mild that I don't want to compare it to what the kind of struggle that a lot of my friends and people I prayed for, or lost for that matter, from the 2020, lots of friends and family members that I've lost, including a cousin that I lost to COVID. What I experienced was so mild and so kind of like that I was not afraid. This is the craziest thing. It tested positive, and I was like, okay, let me do the test again. I did it again. And I was like, okay, so I'm positive, but what am I feeling? I don't have a fever. I don't have I didn't have all the things that were, I know what I had, and I had to deal with the symptoms that I had. And what do I do in the event of this? I do XYZ over-the-counter medication for this, that, or the other. And I started doing what I usually do when I have a cold. And that was the extent, and I isolated myself. I canceled meetings with clients and all that. And what it revealed to me in total, it's a vulnerability I was not expecting. And I talked about this last week. Because of the way and choices I've made to renovate the retreat center upstate and taking my money and putting it in there, my retirement money, I actually depleted everything out. I finished the house, renovated it with help, of course. But by the time this was done, now I have no savings. I'm living from one client to paying a bill, to paying the next one client, to paying the second bill and the third, and so on and so forth. And this is the way I've been living. And this has been for years now. And because I'm in good health, I don't have a problem. I teach, I'm counseling, I'm coaching. So I have to be present to work. I don't have passive income coming in. So the experience I had demonstrated to me the weakness in this setup. I have to figure out a different way to have a cushion in the event that I cannot stand in front of a computer, in front of a camera to speak. That income is still coming in, because the fear that it created for me is that I was going to lose everything and be homeless in the event that something happened. Now, the fear was there, but there was a part of me that knew somehow I was going to get over this and I was going to be okay. I'm sharing this with you because everyone I know that has had that experience, whether they were mildly sick or severely sick, have experienced some deep and profound spiritual lesson that will, or changes that they fundamentally need to do in their life in order for them to be more resilient. And I realize financially, I have to be much more resilient, because right now I'm living literally from paycheck to paycheck, from one client, from one booking to the next booking. And I have to change that, which is something that I'm in the process of reorganizing. I had a conversation and meeting with somebody this afternoon about just that, how to set up a whole bunch of stuff and fundamentally restructure and redo a whole bunch of other stuff. So I'm working on this. And all of this, I'm saying this because I'm using myself as an example, but I want you to think about your own life and the stuff in your life that you need to change, because no matter how hard the obstacle and how impossible it is, the movie or the hologram that you're experiencing at this point is of your co-creation. You're the writer, you're the performer, you're the director, you're the camera person, it's your movie. So if you don't like what you're experiencing, you are capable of changing it. You can change it and write a different script. You can change it and film a different movie. So that process of recreating a different world, a different reality for myself, a different experience, is something that I'm going to be working on between now and the end of the year. I need to make sure that I create something completely different. Now, the part of the conversation we had last week is that many of us are experiencing fears, and a lot of these events are the catalyst to expose to us, because that fear of being homeless, I didn't know was there. It was buried deep in my subconscious mind. I didn't know it was present. But sure enough, the moment I was incapacitated and I had to cancel stuff, that's the thing that immediately came to mind. If you don't work and you don't do this, this is what's going to happen to you. As you're canceling all of these things, you're going to be blah, 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 blah. And because you have no other way for income to come in your life, and you don't have a backup, you don't have a cushion. And so that was the thing that was revelatory for me. So whatever it is that's going to be revelatory for you, this is something that you need to address. And you need whatever change fundamentally that you need to do, you need to create it and do it so that it will actually allow you to have a different 3D, 4D, 5D experience. So where I am right now is that I begin to focus on the state of being that I am in when I am able to connect and create a different beat and a different reality to the one that I now exist in 3D. There is a certain, and it typically occurs when I'm doing my spiritual practice and I am in alignment. It doesn't occur in normal panic mode or fear mode, in me performing emotionally and me thinking the worst and the most negative, my head spinning around and, you know, like I'm running, like a dog running after its own tail. If I'm Chicken Little and I'm creating, saying the sky is falling, it does not help me. And if I can enter into a different state of consciousness, heart and mind coherence first, then doing the morphogenic listening, then when I am in that state, I can begin to wonder, what is this negative experience that or negative effect that I'm feeling from this experience? What is that trying to reveal to me? What part of my spiritual psychology or hidden secret or lies that I've been saying to myself? Because for me, the lie that I was saying to myself is that everything is okay. I'm somehow magically everything will line up for me, and I'm going to skate through, and I'm going to move into the new earth. And by the time I'm in the new earth, there will be no necessity for money, and I'm going to be fine. And that was the lie that I was telling myself. That in the event that there is a food shortage, in the event that there is a supply chain problem, I'm going to need to have funds and money. And whatever, and resources, not only fund and money, but the resources to bypass whatever blockade may exist. So whatever I need to do to overcome this, I have to figure out in my, it's not that I lack talent. It's not that I don't have enough skill and resources to generate value. The value is there. I have plenty of value on overabundant. It's the marketing, the sell, and also a resistance that I have internally in me to receive from the universe for what I am putting out. I tend to be over generous to a fault, and I tend to resist the idea of me receiving abundance and receiving flow. And this is deeply subconscious. It's an overcorrection in terms of thinking that the more I give, it's in giving that you're supposed to receive, and keep giving. But I haven't learned how to turn on full volume, an equal amount, my capacity to also receive. Rather, I'm giving, and the receiving part, it's barely a little sparkle. The light is so dim, it's not fully on. And I know this about myself in all kind of capacity. The woman I was talking to a little bit earlier with this business meeting, we were talking about comparing notes. This is another healer. And we were talking about this is that the kind of generosity that I express, even in the courses, the classes, the recordings, and all the things that I'm doing, that I keep giving. A lot of other teachers out there do not do what I do. She and I were comparing notes about other, she knows a lot of people, a lot of the teachers, how they're pricing themselves, what they charge, it was just like, wow, and and there is such a thing in this industry as passive income. Like I have all these classes that I've written, I've recorded, I have almost 2 terabytes of recording, because I've been doing this for a long time, and I've been recording audio and video recording for a very long time. A lot of people are selling these recordings for these classes for a lot of money in certain kind of platform. And I've got a few names of platforms, and I'm going to try to register with them as a passive income. You've already recorded it. All you have to do is load the information in there, and somebody buy the course for a certain amount of money. In some cases, a lot of money. And you simply now, without doing the work once, and you're getting all this passive income coming in. So I have to have these conversations, and I send out the plea to the universe to show me a way, and the way is being shown to me as a way for me to figure out what I need to change. It's not the value that I don't have. It's not the talent that I don't have. It's me learning how to sell myself, and also learning how to receive, because the giving, I've already demonstrated that this is a muscle. In fact, I am Popeye. The muscle is so big, it's sticking out all the way through here. But I need to equally allow the other side, which is the receiving part, and this one is atrophied, to show up as just as big, so that the two of them can be balanced. So the experience, the negative experience that you're having, is going to teach you something. If you frame it with the right query, the right questions, with the right consciousness, it will begin to reveal something to you that you didn't see before. Whether it is that you're grieving a loss, whether it is that you're dealing with financial worry, whether it is secure, the sense of insecurity and safety, whatever it is that you're experiencing, you're gonna need to have some sort of like insight by querying it and sitting with it. At first, you just have to sit with it. Don't ignore it. Go into the discomfort and sit with it. Once you've done your morphogenic listening, and once you're in that space and you've listened to it, then you begin to see the revelation of the underlying weakness in your spiritual psychology that that you didn't see up to that point that are causing this to be the script that you're experiencing at this moment? And what other script can you flip around? And what else can you, how can you change this and create and make lemonade out of lemon? And what do you need to do this? So here is now the revelation of the weakness in the spiritual psychology. Ideally, it should be this, but how do I go from here to there? What is it that I need to do? Okay. The experience, and the other thing as well is that, and once I am clear about this, then I end up taking the false belief into source. I take very deep breath, universal breath, from the bottom of my feet. I allow the breath to rise up, to move through my body and move completely through me, exit outside of my head with the entire false axis or false belief, and I release it into source. Because all I needed to know was understand the lesson, the falsehood or the lies I am telling myself. And I release the lie, I release it. I take a second breath, I do the same thing again, about 12 times. And once I am done, sometime with the breath, I would repeat to myself silently, I release all attachments, fears, and control. And I surrender into the great emptiness and endless luminosity. I release all attachment, fears, and control, and I surrender into the great emptiness and endless luminosity. And then as I said, as I'm saying, I release, I see the false belief surrendering, like I'm throwing it into a lake, a rock into a lake. I'm seeing myself letting it go. Okay? And once that is done, I begin to feel like a sense of release, a sense of going, oh, like I was wearing a girdle and the girdle got, oh, you know, somebody unlaced me. And I begin to feel I can breathe now. There's room. And at that moment, I am connected to infinity times infinity. I'm connected to the blessed field. And it's in that blessed field, in that infinity times infinity, that suddenly I can begin to feel a very specific sense of benevolence and kindness. Because once the releases happen 12 times and I let go, then I sit in this bliss, the sense of being unburdened. And I sit in it and I allow whatever the universe wants to return back to me to show up. And I have to tell you that often enough, after I release that false belief and I let it go, I don't necessarily know what the correction is yet. But the moment I release the burden, I completely let it go into source. When the benevolence and the kindness begin to show up for me, then suddenly, at that moment, there is a download or clarity or a simplicity or an insight as to what I am supposed to exist in. Sometimes it is a sense or a knowing that the illusion of struggle, the illusion of suffering, the illusion of pain that I exist in is nothing more than exactly that. It's emptiness. It doesn't exist. Then suddenly there is an awareness of what really the universe is really made of, which is suddenly a connection to an abundance and perpetually renewal fountain of hope, of miraculous and instantaneous change and transformation. And the moment that state comes in, that benevolence, that kindness, that magical, fertile, and miraculous state, the way forward for me to exist, or the consciousness I need to exist in, as compared to the limiting consciousness that I was in, that new awareness just shows up. And I know exactly what I'm supposed to do. And all I have to do now is to breathe in this benevolence and let it drop back into my body, to at least energetically know and experience that hope, that miraculous transformation as a certainty. So that I will have now the certainty of that hope, knowing full well that as a potential, right now I'm seeing it as a potential. I'm seeing it in its raw, core, and essential form. Now, as I inhale it into my body and drop it in, I am now grounding it. And I have to tell you that most of the time, when I am in that state and I'm allowing the grounding to occur and I'm letting it drop in, miraculous and instantaneous things begin to occur. Things that I thought were impossible. Like people show up out of my life that, you know, in the most impossible and miraculous day, something just shows up. And all of a sudden, come to me that address exactly the lack or the restrictions or the limitation that I was experiencing before. Whether it be financial, whether it be psychological, whether it be emotional, it doesn't matter, because that blessed field is a field of endless, miraculous, and instantaneous potential. And the funny thing about that state, which is a state, when you enter into infinity times infinity, it's a state of emptiness. That state is not a vacuum. I want to state this again, because when we use the term emptiness, a lot of times people keep thinking that it's a void. It's a vacuum that has nothing in it. It is the exact opposite. It has every permutation, potential in all dimension of time and space in all universe. Everything is in there. Everything. But they all exist as potential, not as manifested actual events, but as potential for manifestation. If I can transcend, because the only way for me to get there is that I have to let go of the fear that's holding me. So the fear end up being, or the experience, the negative experience end up being the catapult, if used correctly. It may feel like a burden, like you're working an anchor that's holding you down. It's not an anchor. It's actually a springboard. Because the moment you can release it and let it go, and you learn, you sit with it first, you learn the weakness in your spiritual psychology, and then at that moment you say, the anchor now is a springboard, and then you release it. The moment you do this, you're going to enter into the blessed field. And it is in that blessed field that the miraculous and the instantaneous change will occur for you. Because that blessed field, out of the billions and billions and billions and trillions and quadrillions of potential, the one that is exactly the scalar invert, the opposite of what you were experiencing, will begin to drop as a clear correction for what you're going through. And the moment that happened, I bring it in. I energetically inhale it in, I drop it into my body. And sometimes that's all I need to do. The next thing you know, the phone rings, somebody knocks on my door, or the next day something happens, and the exact correction to my issue, I get, and sometimes it might take several days or several months for you to correct a situation completely. But the beginning, the inception of the change will occur the moment you energetically drop it in. The inception of it will come in, and from the inception, a seed idea is planted. A concept, a new axis is planted. And from that, it will grow, it will expand, and it will create a different world for you. Any questions, any comments?
Okay, Pierre, the release of the anchors, or which are really springboards, the important thing I think might be to not allow them to return into your thought and mind as you're waiting for the inception, the seed to take fruit, right? It must be an ongoing process of releasing. Or am I wrong?
No, you might have to repeat it multiple times, particularly if the issue that you're dealing with is a chronic issue, okay? It may show up at other time, but the point is the next time around, you've already experienced the surrender and you've already experienced the bliss. So you know, even though you may be stuck on the CD looping, you know that there's a way out. You may be looping emotionally, but you know that there is a way out because you've been there already. So it's a question of finding your way into that other state, into the springboard. And I have to say to you, to your point, Janice, I had already experienced survival 3D issues months earlier, okay? But I had experienced them as a way for related to control, to a necessity or me trying to be safe, particularly as it related to all the global climate change, disease, et cetera, et cetera. So it's to try to survive and trying to find a way. And what was driving it for me is that I was trying to control all of it. Okay? I was trying to control all of it by creating distance, boundary, doing all the things I used to do. I mean, the nonsense I did for COVID in the early days, and I'm not saying nonsense, but the protocol that I put myself to put, because at the time, a lot of people were dying because no scientists around the world. I'm talking about March 2020, 2000. No one knew, and my cousin passed away. So many people I knew were dying. So when I came from the outside, the stuff that I did was completely ballistic.
Yeah.
Okay. From the sanitizer in the hand, the wipe, or the keys goes in the sink immediately to be washed. I wiped the entire door on both sides, the doorknob, the lock, the cylinder. I spread the bottom of my bag. I went ballistic. Okay. And I'm not doing this now. And I would take the mask off and then immediately go to the bathroom, wash my entire face, wash my hand, and etc. Right? So what I was experiencing at the time is extreme. I'm trying to control this. But what I experienced this time now, fast forward almost 3 years, and having experienced the COVID itself. And what I experienced was so minor compared to what I was expecting. But what it did to me is that it revealed something else about survival that I didn't know was there, which is a vulnerability that was unknown to me, the fear of being homeless. I didn't know this. Do you see what I'm saying, Janice? So when it comes back, it's not going to come back exactly the way you remember it. Because I was not experiencing a desire to control and to be safe. I actually felt while I was having that experience that I was going to be okay, because I was not having difficulty breathing. The experience was so mild for me. So
it sounds like until you reach the core, your process will be limited. In other words, 3 years ago, your surrender and whatever came with controls maybe, but in the meantime, the process of renewed surrendering maybe wasn't hitting the core, and maybe you haven't hit the core still.
exactly.
So does that mean that the miraculous and instantaneous polar opposite will be delayed until you reach that?
No. It's gonna show you for whatever it is that you're aware of the moment, because you're writing the script and you're writing the solution set. So at the moment it was control in March of 2020. So if it was controlled, when I release it, I got a solution set for that.
Oh, I see.
Do you understand what I'm saying? So now I have other issues now. It's like a tree that has multiple root system,
Right.
or a river that has multiple tributary. So I'm getting the exact solution set connected to the tributary or the piece that I'm looking at. So now I'm looking at this thing about being homeless. So that's what I need to address now.
So until you reach that core, though, you're not free of that.
No, and the core is made up of, like a tree, a giant tree. Yeah. An old giant tree, survival being the core, the theme of the tree. So instead of an oak tree or a peach tree or mango tree, the tree is survival. And that survival is being fed by multiple negative, false beliefs.
Interesting. Well, the onion does have many layers, and the tree.
Yeah.
So I guess we just keep digging for the best route we can reach.
Yes. And whatever experience shows up for you, that experience will teach you.
Thank you.
As a teacher, seize as a teacher. It's not why me, poor me, and etc. It's something else.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions or comments? So yeah, I'm the key to this miraculous, and really when I'm connected to that blessed field, and initial connection, particularly when I go, let's say for now with this fear of being homeless, I go in there and I release it and I let it go. And to the degree that I release and let go, initially, the benevolent, the frequency and the vibration or the feelings, to put in a word, because it's very difficult to explain, because you're now you're in infinity. It's very hard to describe into word. But the feelings that I'm getting are not solely connected to the opposite or scalar invert of being homeless. there is an infinite number of things that shows up. I feel it energetically, like I'm moving to this immense space. And there is an infinite and a multitude of sensations and feelings energetically that are moving about me, all of them benevolent. And that at some point in that process, one of them begin to fall out and precipitate that connects directly to the canceling vibration or canceling concept, core, or idea to what I'm experiencing at the moment. I want to point this out because I want you to understand that that state when you're infinity times infinity, it's an immense and infinite field of potential, all of which could solve the problem and more, because there is an infinite way of solving my issue connected to homelessness or my false belief connected to homelessness. There are multiple ways to solve that problem. It's not just one solution. And I can feel the multitude wrapping all around me energetically, moving about me, and eventually one of them settle in. I suppose my higher self or whatever it is, select one of them and that one precipitate in, because I exist as a singularity of consciousness. When you're in that field, you have to be pluralistic and you have to be multidimensional in you have to exist in a state of collective awareness because there's so much in there. I want to go into these details because I want you, because these things when you're in that state happen in the blink of an eye. It happens so quickly and so fast that you're going to miss it. You've all have experienced it already. I'm just slowing the movie down so that I can analyze it point by point and make you understand what you have experienced already. All of it is benevolent. But initially, it feels like this vast and infinite thing, what all of these benevolent things are swirling about. All of them are potential ways in which the issue you are bringing up can be addressed. And then ultimately, either a thought, a voice, an idea, a concept, something will emerge. And that's the solution that your singular consciousness has selected as the solution for your now singular problem. And that part is important. Because last week we spoke about hope. We spoke about the potential, the certainty of hope, and the potential that it can create. Because if you know, if you've communicated with that field enough time, you will know that it doesn't matter what problem exists in 3D, whether it's climate change, whether it is a nuclear disaster, whether it is whatever it is that there is a problem. If enough human beings, not just you as a singularity of a single human being, but if enough of us go into this blessed field asking for a solution set, the issue, whatever big it may be or small that it may be, will miraculously and instantaneously, the same way it shows up for me. And I can recount multiple experiences already in my past where I had situations where all kinds of things I thought were impossible all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the solution just wraps around, and the next day, it just shows up with ease and flow, and my problem is solved. Now, if it can happen for me, if it's a global problem, if enough of us focus on it and realize that the collective experience, negative experience we're having is not necessary, that we are all collectively holding a false belief of this being the reality or the collective movie that we're experiencing. And if enough of us can do this, 144,000 to be exact, if we all can do this, it will allow us to go into the blessed field together and request for the solution set, for the correction, for the repair. And that repair will show up and begin to precipitate. Miraculously, instantaneously, it will begin to show up. And suddenly, transformation and change occurs. And I'm going to use a rather important example that I used last week as a way to illustrate and put a capping stone onto the concept that I'm bringing up to your attention. The Bible talks about the passage of the Red Sea. When Moses took, and initially Moses came to liberate, there was only 600,000 Israelites that were in prison in Egypt. But when he walked out after the 10th plague, where the firstborn of everyone in Egypt died, including the son of Pharaoh, when he was leaving, he had 3 million people behind him, including a whole bunch of other slaves who in the Bible are called the mixed multitude. They were not necessarily of complete Jewish faith, but they went along because they wanted freedom and they didn't want to be enslaved anymore. They didn't want the torture and the beat down and everything else, so they followed Moses out. As you know, the story is Pharaoh followed, his rage, his anger continued, he followed, and when they were at the Dead Sea, on the edge of the Dead Sea with nowhere to go, he was about to pounce to attack. Then God created a column of fire to block Pharaoh from attack. In the night, as the fire was burning up or burning down, whichever the case may be, Moses realized by the morning that Pharaoh is going to get to them. The fire will die down and Pharaoh is going to get to them. And because of this, he asked God for help. The Bible says God told him to extend his staff. And as he extended the staff over the water separated. The children of Israel moved through. And when Pharaoh tried to follow, the water caved into them and killed Pharaoh's army. The Kabbalah said something completely different. In the Zohar, the story is completely different. It actually says that when Moses talked to God that evening, God said to him, jump in the water. That was the answer. So when he went in the blessed field responded, giving that big problem, Pharaoh's behind us. We don't know where we're going to go. What do we do? The blessed field responded, jump in the water. When Moses told the 3 million people what actually he heard, what he got, the message he got from God, the mixed multitude, not the Israelite, but the mixed multitude almost lynched him. Because they were like, we were okay, we were slaves, but at least we were alive. Pharaoh is going to catch us, he's going to slaughter all of us. They were trying to attack him. And then at that point, he said to them, hold on. What you are not understanding in the message and what I got, God already gave us a way to create the miracle. Because the miracle could not be created by Moses and Moses alone. So during that entire evening, he used the power of certainty, or hope and certainty, which is one of the divine names, 72 divine names, which are 72 different aspects of God. That whole very powerful sequence, it's three Hebrew letters. And when he had everybody focus on this the entire night, he put all of the 3 million people into a trance. All of them in that blessed field. You know that field I told you to go to? That's those steps I just recount. He took everybody, they all did that step. They all surrendered the fear of what's happening with Pharaoh into the blessed field. All of them went in together for that entire evening. They released it. And as they did this and they released it into the blessed field, as the sun rose, the fire was dwelling down. Pharaoh's army was getting ready to go after them. They could hear the army, the chariot far away, but getting closer. A young man named Machoni, teenager, in a trance and in a complete awareness of certainty, hope and certainty, begin to move as the water lapped the beach. In the Dead Sea, water lapped the beach. He began to walk into the water at his ankle in complete belief, only asking for one thing: give us safe passage. Give me safe passage. Give all of us safe passage. And as this continued, water up to his knees, water up to his waist, to his chest, water up to his chin. And when the water began to enter into his mouth, again in complete and utter certainty, that he already has safe passage because he's in the blessed field. He already has safe passage. And it wasn't just Machoni. Machoni was the avatar, the precipitate. But everyone was in the same state of consciousness, 3 million of them. And at the moment the water got into his mouth, the water separated into. And Moses guided everyone to move quickly through the water on the other side of the Dead Sea. And when Pharaoh's army followed, because they're a little bit far behind, they reached the other side and the water fell down and collapsed back and swallowed Pharaoh's army. Now I have to say to you that in that story, there's some profound and deep spiritual truth. Because Ralph Berg, in his book, where he talks about this particular story from the Zohar, says what we all have to understand: physical and natural laws, the laws of physics, like gravity, simple physical law of mechanics. All these physical and natural law, they obey consciousness. Because at that very moment, when Machoni's kind of like was the needle that caused the water to separate when the waters got to his mouth, at that very moment, every body of water on earth split in half. because the natural law that control how water operates was temporarily rearranged and suspended by the consciousness of 3 million people seeking safe passage. It was bypassed. Thus, the natural law, what we call immutable, when there is enough consciousness that goes into that blessed emptiness, infinity times infinity, and field, if that law can be bypassed, anything can be bypassed. If enough of us ask for it. Physical and natural law can be bypassed by us going into the roots of everything, the essence of being, of pure consciousness. So to the point that I'm making is that if the 144,000 were to go today into the blessed field to present some of the difficulty, be it global warming, be it fear of nuclear explosion, etc., whatever disease that were to present it there, and we were to actually truly do the work and the awakened work to take it and understanding it's a false belief, an illusion, and then bring it into the blessed field and surrender it to allow an infinite potential of manifestation to swirl about us initially, and then for the precipitate to show up. And again, Makshoni did, and the mixed multitude and the Israelite did not ask specifically, split the Red Sea for me. They asked for no such thing. When you go into that blessed field, that's not, it never works this way. You intend, if your fear is, for example, is a fear of homelessness, you ask a way for that not to be the case. In this instance, they knew that they had to get to the other side of the Dead Sea. That was the only way out. So somehow they asked the blessed field for safe passage. This is why even now in Jewish tradition, when they're celebrating that event, they're asking also, it's the passage of the Red Sea. It's safe passage. That's all they wanted. Not trying to control the hand of God by telling God, you're going to do a miracle and you're going to do, Moses was not Gandalf like in the movie The Lord of the Ring, at the bridge of Khazad-dûm with a staff that said, you shall not pass. This is not the way it happened. It was created by the collective awareness and surrender of 3 million people asking for safe passage. Makshoni was just the person selected by God to be the pencil or the point that brought it into manifestation. So if enough of us can create first certainty for ourselves, then certainty for the collective, we can begin to precipitate and activate our own safe passage into whatever new reality, new experience, new movie that we are collectively trying to create. Any questions, any comments? I want you now to ask yourself, to everything that I've said right now, what area in your life, what could use a miracle? What part of your experience at this moment that you're struggling with could possibly benefit from an experience similar to Machon? Think carefully, because don't limit yourself to, saying, for example, I need a new job, or I need, a husband, or I need a companion, or I need because sometimes that's not exactly, you're being reactive. What is it exactly? This is why you have to go to the exercise of seeing the lack and whatever is the problem or the issue on that side, and taking it, surrendering into the blessed field. Because sometimes you enter the blessed field with the idea, oh, I need exactly the opposite. This is you trying to control. But when you really let it go and you surrender it, a lot of time what you think you need, the blessed field will present to you a root idea that is completely different, or rather more expensive, that has more breadth than just the limited exact opposite, or kind of like the other side of the coin of the problem that you're having. Because sometimes the other side of the coin is not the solution. It's a reaction, but it is not the solution. I don't want you to think about reactions like knee-jerk reaction, but rather a liberated, a free and liberated experience that will forever unshackle you from the burden that you're experiencing at this moment. Think for a minute. If you have something physical in your body, if you have, you're dealing with a health issue, if you're dealing with, and the size of the problem is not relevant. If it's a global thing, you need a whole team, like I was just describing now with the passage of the Red Sea. But I'm asking you now to think about your own personal life. What is it exactly seems to be the greatest burden at this moment? And whatever that issue is, I'm going to guide you into a meditation and a connection in a moment to go into the blessed field and find the certainty of hope that exists in the blessed field. Be aware of the stages I just spoke about. First, we're going to go into the burden, the issue, and go deep into understanding and trying to figure out where the issue is. And then once you're aware of it, take it into source and let it go and surrender. Sometimes it's related to a person, sometimes it's related to a situation, sometimes it's related to you holding a false belief about a person or a situation, sometimes, however it shows up, whatever it is, and now release it into God. Release it into the blessed field completely. And once it is in that blessed field, pay attention initially because to the degree that the surrender is real and you become non-attached to that existing false belief and you completely let it go, because it has to be a complete surrender. To the degree that you let it go and you surrender it completely and you release it, it is to the degree that the solution set will instantaneously and miraculously show up. Because initially when you let go, you surrender it, there's a release. And after the release, you will feel, and I want you to be aware of this, not just one solution set, but an infinite number of benevolent, energetic, and free, vibrational experiences that are going to swirl about you. Endless. And all of them are benevolent. And your higher self will figure out which one is the best for you and will precipitate it and will show it. It may show up as an idea or a word or sentence you would hear, a vision, or it may feel energetically something drops inside of you. And then we're going to inhale it in and now ground it and become Makshoni and pencil it into the earth as an actual physical miracle, as an actual transformation. Any questions, any comments? All right, let us take a 5-minute break. And then on the back end of this, we'll do this together. 5 minutes.
Take a very deep and slow breath. And as you inhale and exhale deeply and slowly, allow the universal life force that permeates everything to enter into your lungs. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. And let your soul and your awareness drop in the middle of your chest. Please forgive me. I love you. And I let go. Please forgive me. I love you. And I let go. Let your heart and your mind merge with each other. Allowing you to enter into coherence. And as you continue to breathe in deeply and slowly, realize that you can perceive energies to 360 degrees all around you. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. And become aware of the burden or struggle, or false belief. That's creating a crisis in your life. Where in your body are you feeling this? Take a very deep breath. And let your consciousness sink into the discomfort. What is the weakness in my spiritual psychology? That is letting this be my reality. What false belief is blocking me from experiencing the opposite? Keep breathing deeply and slowly. Now take a very deep breath from the core of the earth. And as this breath moves through the bottom of your feet, passing through you, dislodging the weakness in your spiritual psychology, and taking that entire system outside of your head, and as you exhale completely, release it into source. Let go. Take a very deep breath from source and let the healing and the repairs come into you and ground into your body and go into the core of the earth. Take another breath from the core of the earth and let this breath move through bottom of your feet, dislodging this fear and core belief. And release it completely into source. Let go. Allow the solution set and the healing and the repairs to come in from source, and let it ground into your physical body and into the core of the earth. Take another breath from the core of the earth and let this breath move through the bottom of your feet, passing through you, dislodging this fear, this false belief, and release it completely into source. Let go. Take a very deep breath from source and let this breath move through the bottom of your feet, to the top of your head, cascading down into you and dropping to the core of the earth. Take a very deep breath from the core of the earth and let this breath move through the bottom of your feet, passing through you, dislodging this core fear and all of its tributary related fears, and let it all exit outside of your head. And let it all be released and surrendered completely into source. Take a very deep breath from source and let a cascade of benevolence and kindness come into you, passing through your entire body and going into the very core of the earth. Take a very deep breath from the core of the earth and let this breath move through the bottom of your feet, passing through you, dislodging this core fear and all of its tributary fears. And let it all be released outside of your head and surrendered completely into source. Let go. Take a deep breath from source and let this breath cascade down into you, bringing the solution set. And let it ground into the very core of the earth. Take a very deep breath from the core of the earth and let this breath move through the bottom of your feet, dislodging this fear and all of these tributary fears. And let it all be released outside of your head and go into source. Let a sea of benevolence and kindness come into source, dropping into you and ground into the very core of the earth. Take a very deep breath from the core of the earth and let this breath move through the bottom of your feet, passing through you, dislodging this fear and all of its tributary fears, and release all of it into source. Surrender and let go. Take a very deep breath from source and let this breath move through you and bring a miraculous repair. And drop it into the very core of the earth. Take a very deep breath from the core of the earth and let this breath move through the bottom of your feet, passing through you, dislodging the sphere and all its tributary qualities and effects, and release all of it outside of your head and surrender all of it into source. Take a very deep breath from source and let this breath move through the bottom of to your core, cascading down into you and drop into the very core of the earth. Take a very deep breath from the core of the earth and let this breath move through the bottom of your feet, passing through you, dislodging the sphere and all of its tributary fears, and release all of it into source. Let go. Take a very deep breath from source and let a cascade of benevolence and repair to move through you and ground into the core of the earth. Take a very deep breath from the core of the earth and let this breath move through the bottom of your feet, passing through you, dislodging all fears and all of its tributary fears. Release all of it into source. Let go. Take a deep breath from source and allow the blessed field to bring you the scalar invert that you need, and let it cascade into your being like an endless flow of repairs, benevolence, kindness, and healing. And let it ground into the very core of the earth. Take another breath from the core of the earth and let this breath move through the bottom of your feet, passing through you, dislodging the last remnant of all of the sphere and all of its tributary qualities. And let it all be released and drop completely into source. Release and let go. Become aware endless solution set that may exist in infinity times infinity. Allow the simplicity, clarity, of the scalar invert to ground into your being. Take a very deep and slow breath from souls. And allow this instantaneous and miraculous repair to ground into your being. Thank you for the blessings. I accept the gifts and I receive with gratitude. Thank you for the blessings. I accept the gifts and I receive with gratitude. Thank you for the blessings. I accept the gifts and I receive with gratitude. Take a very deep and slow breath. And whenever you feel ready, you can open your eyes.
Thank you, Pierre. That was a really excellent and deep start to the process. So we'll just continue it and be patient.
Yeah, it was very deep for me as well, even though I was the one giving it. There was some core issue that I'm dealing with receiving. And I thought it was an incapacity to receive. And it was during the process, it was revealed as I went to these multiple, going from the core of the earth, moving upwards, it was revealed to me that it's not in a capacity to receive. It's that it's a different way of me trying to control.
Oh,
It's still me trying to control by giving excessively and not allowing myself to receive. Because when I receive, I feel vulnerable and exposed.
uh-huh. Wow.
So this is why I began to say tributary, because it wasn't just about receiving. There were all these other things that were connected to it.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it's a survival thing for me because my dad was undiagnosed schizophrenic, and there was a lot of violence, and I needed to get love from him and care for him, and what did every child wants from a parent. And I remember around 4 years old when he tried to kill my mother in front of me, I remember me very specifically making a choice that day and saying, I will never need anything from anyone anymore.
Mhm.
I was 4 years old when I said this to myself. And I've been giving to everyone since then. It's old. It's very old. I gotta do a lot of work.
Well, replacing that sense of the abuse and the dependency with the love, the great love from source, maybe taking the place of your father's state that he was in, would replace a father figure with
A divine father,
right.
with the divine father, with allowing and feeling safe around the divine father,
Yeah,
allowing
yes.
myself to receive from divinity.
But receiving the great love
Yes,
that
yes,
comes from the divine father
yes.
will help, I think, in that capacity.
Anyway, I got a lot of work to do. I got a lot of work, and I'm realizing the depth and how, I mean, literally everything in my life is blocked because of this.
Well,
I'm
maybe say it's a lot of work. Maybe it can be easy.
yeah, no,
Just
no,
letting source do the work for you.
absolutely, absolutely. As long as I'm clear about the lesson and the steps, source will take care of the rest. Absolutely.
Good, good.
Anyways, thank you, everyone. I'm sorry to make this about myself at the very end, but I gotta say this is a major thing for me. Thank you all for listening. I want to thank everybody that's listening to us on YouTube and on Patreon. Thank you for your support. Like this video, subscribe to the channel. I thank you very deeply, and I will talk to you next week. Good night, everyone. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Good night, guys. Good night,
Good
everyone.
night. Love you all.
Bye bye. Me too.